Welcome to Marin Poets Live. I'm Neshama Franklin. I work at the Fairfax Library and I love poetry. After this program airs on TV, it will appear on the Marin Free Library website as part of a digital archive which also features biographies of the poet and links to our collection. Today we have poet Terri Glass. And welcome, Terri.
Thank you, Neshama. I'm really happy to be here.
Good. And as we do, let's plant our feet right in Marin with a Marin poem.
Okay. I would like to start out with a poem called Evening in Inverness. It was a poem I wrote while living in Inverness. I lived there for 1 year. And this is something that's very typical that happens in the Bay Area. Evening in Inverness. It came in like a thick topping of Cool Whip and cast a shroud over the bay, and I swear I was in Scotland, where through the mist you catch a fleeting glimpse of Nessie before she swoops down into the cold, dank waters. I don't know how and why an 80-degree day can end this way. I don't know how and why someone who calls you darling one moment enters those dank waters and attempts to pull you under. I must knit a scarf of seagull dander so my ears won't freeze from this sudden drop. I must cast the stones out of my pockets before I walk straight into the bay, so I float like a sea pup, like a whip of bull kelp. And I grapple every day among the blooming lilac and the apple blossom trees. I grapple for words, for pumice stones, for the glorious fog that floats, drifts, and swoops down over Mount Vision, and like a nativity scene of Christ. And I'm forever cradled and swaddled in its cold, white, swirling mystery.
That's so lovely. So did you actually get into the water in that 80-degree day? Did you swim with the possible monster underneath?
No, but it was my intention to go out to the water that day and go swimming, and the fog came in and it was just so blustery cold.
Right, but I love the way you switched back and forth from the scene to the internal stuff.
Yes.
And the grapple.
Yes.
Yes.
And you notice that the stones were from the story of Virginia Woolf walking right into the river with the pumice stones in her pockets.
Yes, now I wouldn't have gotten that if you hadn't said so, and that's the beauty of what we do here.
Yes.
So another poem, please.
Okay. I'd like to read Wild Turkeys, and this is a poem I wrote while out at Spirit Rock Meditation Center. The way they moved, the herd of wild turkeys through the fields near Spirit Rock, as if they were on a pilgrimage to some unknown promised land. Some in full regalia, tail feathers spread wide, others their thin necks stretched out with their great red gobblers dangling below. The air was still, the sky hung silent like a frozen movie frame, mesmerized by these birds who were not flighty like seagulls, but walked like a proud tribe determined to touch the earth. And I wondered if I'd been a turkey, would I feel shortchanged, that I really wasn't meant for flying and my descendants would become the biggest commodity at a Thanksgiving meal. None of this mattered. It was the way they carried their massive turkey bodies through the autumn fields, erect on a migratory mission, 50 more or so turkeys, wild turkeys shouting God's name in each and every tail feather.
That is very glorious and very ridiculous. I mean, turkeys are ridiculous birds.
They are ridiculous.
But you are on the pilgrimage at Spirit Rock, and they are on the pilgrimage across the field.
Exactly.
It's lovely.
They're such gorgeous-looking birds, but also they look prehistoric. Mm-hmm. Yes, they're very odd-looking birds.
Yes.
Yes. And I have another one here. This one is a signature Marin poem. It's called Colinas Reservoir, and this reservoir is up near Terra Linda. There's 3 actually ponds there, which is a water reservoir, and there's a lot of bird life there. Colinas Reservoir. As the Canada geese glide overhead, casting a shadow on the black-necked stilts, my heart folds inward. My heart becomes the shape of this pond. My heart ripples with delight as the shovelers swim in circles, scooping up algae for their meal. My heart shouts for joy as the white pelican resting on the bank splays its enormous wings towards sunlight. My heart recognizes the underbelly of the harrier as if it were the palm of my own hand. My heart is the rhythm of water, of air, of winged creature. My heart is a rhythm of tide, of moon, of earth. My body is the dance of elemental joy here at the pond, where the geese glide over the delicate black-necked stilts, wading in the water.
I love that very much. I'm going to invoke Mary Oliver's name
Yes.
here because I feel the hymn of the earth
Yes.
speaking as she does, so fully and joyously and right in there as
Yes.
you do as well.
Yes, and Mary Oliver is, probably one of my favorite poets. Early on, I think she was one of my favorite poets. Yeah. And I read a lot about nature, and of course she does too, so yeah.
And it gives you solace,
Yes.
obviously.
Yes.
And it gives you solace and it twists you inside. It evokes stuff in you.
Yeah, usually, it will, a sense of discovery is made through the poem writing and through the being in touch with nature and then going inside and seeing what that stirs inside of you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which makes it very exciting for me to hear.
Oh, good.
Some more.
All right. This is a childhood memory poem. And I was raised in a very rural section of Northwest Washington, and it was had been my grandfather's property. And so this is a memory of the horses that perhaps had been there at one time. It's called Chub and Nig. When I entered the old barn full of planks and stalls, hay bales and wooden beams, I had a sense that they were there, the sturdy workhorses that used to plow my grandpa's field, their harnesses still hanging on the walls like huge, stiff collars. Their bin for hay I used to fill, hoping for their return into full-length haunches, wild chestnut manes, and white burly hair cascading down their thick hooves. I swear I could hear their whinny and see the curl of their lips. Then I would climb onto one of their broad backs and gallop into the field of wild roses and Queen Anne's lace. For a moment I was riding the wind like Annie Oakley, bareback and laughing, as the spirit horse was as free as me, no longer plowing the fields, no longer anyone's slave.
That's really delicious. And there's the seed of the poet in the child who could create a spirit horse.
Yes.
And had the hope filling the bin. I mean, that's such wonderful magical realism from a child.
Yeah. And they were there as far as I was concerned.
Yes.
Yeah. Those horses were.
Right, and I love all those H's with the harnesses hanging in the haunches.
Heavy on the alliteration, yeah.
Yes.
And I'm going to read one more childhood memory poem from this book, and then I'll read some new poems. This one's called Heidi. This was my favorite pet growing up, and this took place when I was about 16 years old, coming home from a date. Heidi, purebred collie, coat like a king's robe, greeted me at the door one day with a wagging body curving around like a quick rope. She had something to tell me and not just hello. Her body bursting with an uncontainable happiness, whimpering some foreign language I, being human, could not decipher. Guiding me to the backyard, her paws barely touched the ground, where she slipped underneath the house like a hand into a glove compartment and brought back one of her newborn puppies, its tiny neck draped from her mouth.
I knew what her surprise was.
You knew that?
I knew that. I mean, it's wonderfully telegraphed.
Yes.
Yes, and it's so delicious. Again, these are tasty, tasty poems.
Great. And I'm going to move into some newer poems, and a lot of my poetry now is taking on quite an environmental theme, just because that is what's going on in our planet with all the climate change and everything.
You love it and it's messed up. What do you do?
Yeah, so you're right about it.
Yeah.
You know, you're right about the beauty and you're right about the terror of it being destroyed. This one's called Swan and Drought. I am defined by blue, blue sky, blue water. Cloud white I am, once a cloud floating on water. I circle and circle the summer sky, looking for the still blue pond, gone. I long to float on water, to feel the coolness seep beneath my feathers, my body buoyant as air itself. I am tired of circling the sky. I want the rain to slide underneath my translucent wings, to rest on the pond, nestling my beak into my soft body. Seasons pass, no water. How long can I be a cloud empty of rain? How long can the sky only hold white clouds?
I just love something that is political but so far from the horror of politics.
Yes.
And I also love the pond gone, bong,
Yeah.
bong.
Yeah, and it was the feeling, this was before we had any rain, and I was viscerally feeling in my body this drought going on.
It's a very visceral poem.
Yeah.
Lucky Zeus wasn't around.
This is another environmental poem called Sea Stars. As if fallen from the sky, their 5 points illuminate the bottom of the sea. They have lived for centuries, blood orange, deep purple, with perfectly symmetrical arms now tearing off and crawling away from their bodies. Sea star wasting syndrome. Can you imagine what that feels like? Maybe the bombing victims of the Boston Marathon know when that blast left so many with shattered limbs. Our nation severed in so many directions. The ocean now acid. Today I found a tiny headless snake squirming on my back patio. What? I look at my body still intact. I love my arms when they swoosh the summer air as I hike up Mount Burdell, the balance they create, the multitude of purposes they serve. Whole populations of sea stars along the Pacific coast, vanishing like cities at night, lights going out one by one. As their arms rip away, leaving their bodies in a limp mass, I do my morning yoga triangle pose, my body 5-pointed, my left arm vertical toward the sky, from where stars fall.
Yes, and trying to hold what cannot be held in the arms that are sloughing off the creatures. It's so many ironies in there.
Yes, so many ironies, and what was so interesting about after I wrote that poem, I actually fell while hiking and injured my left arm. So it was almost like I was empathizing with these creatures so much that my body responded.
Right.
It was really, really, really odd. This poem is called, as you notice, I write a lot about animals. I just love the animal world. And this one is called Mola Mola the sunfish. This is one of the oddest creatures I've ever seen at the Monterey Bay Aquarium. Heavy as a boulder, it is somehow able to drift in the sea, a miracle to the many faces who view fish with real fins. A tail so stubby it makes a thalidomide baby look like it could wear an evening glove. A body so round the full moon could have fallen into the sea. And when it drifts sideways, I think, poor Mola Mola, you cannot hold your massive body upright. You should sink to the bottom of the ocean and hubnub with the sand-dwelling flounders. But the Mola Mola doesn't sink at all, it just floats sideways, heavy with one eye looking upward toward the pale light, like those of us who suffer the all-American dream, sitting in our beige recliner chairs watching Dancing with the Stars.
That's delightful.
Yeah. And this next poem is called Riverkeeper. This is kind of a prosy poem. It's a couple of poems. It's very interesting what poetry wants to take an extended line and just keep moving. And I was in graduate school a few years ago and really playing with form, and kind of these longer lines started to emerge. And this one has an epitaph. In downtown Martinez, California, a pair of beavers arrived in Alhambra Creek. The Martinez beavers built a 30-foot-wide dam and at one time 6 feet high and chewed through half the willows and other creekside landscaping the city planted as part of its $9 million 1999 flood improvement project. Riverkeeper, and I took on the persona of the beaver. I want to be a beaver, a simple creature with 2 glassy black eyes and a spatula tail with which I whack the ground when I please. I want to gnaw down some rough bark trees and jam a river, your river. I want to jam your river with logs, limbs, and leaves. I want to waddle and jam and slap and mow. I want to mow down a forest full of willows with my big chunky teeth and let my olive-sized nostrils whiff the aspen breeze. I just want to be a beaver, not your beaver, a beaver. With mud and stone in my forepaws and timber beneath my teeth, I want to build a 6-foot-high dam that dazzles muskrats and minks. I want to outflank the Army Corps of Engineers and infiltrate every river, stream, and creek. I want the handsome fur coat that no, you cannot pet, and live in a den underwater that's not a welcome habitat for any wishful human to probe, poke, or peer. I want to build a bridge between waterways with logs of birch. When I waddle, I want my underbelly to scrape the detritus of earth. I want to string the seasons into some kind of thatch, a seal from winter storms where I languidly rest. I want to be a beaver with a thick fur pelt and a bouquet of stiff whiskers. I want to go my beaver ways and not be bothered by fishing line or tack. I want to gnaw, whittle, and whack, and build up that pile of sticks to block out your scent, you musky humans with your lures and animal traps.
Now there's that kid again.
Yes.
And indeed it is wanna, W-A-N-N-A.
Yeah,
and that's such a kid phrase.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. And you notice it's such a play on sound in that particular that particular poem.
Yeah. Did you slip into song there?
A little bit, yes.
Right.
Yeah. It's definitely a metrical poem. Yeah. This one's called Wind Turbines of Ultimate Pass. And many people, if they live in California, see this scene quite frequently when they're going over towards Sacramento, that area. Wind Turbines of Ultimate Pass. Standing upright on barren hills, facing both sides of the freeway, catching smog spewing from automobiles, catching winds and wild blades of steel, killing kestrels and red-tailed hawks, generating energy for power grids, lighting the streetlights of grimy alleyways, lighting the traffic light that turns red. I stop breathless at these colossi, the loneliness of gray metal against blue sky, and ask, what part of me feels like this? What part of my loneliness turns thoughts in my head, kills the flight of the imagination, but lights the dark alleyways of doubt? What part of me has hardened to my own spirit, longing to find the nearby delta where egrets wade and rivers converge? What part of me stands on barren hills, thrashing my arms toward the universe, hoping all this thrashing does some good in the world?
Wow. To think you could take on one of those machines and get into it the same way you got into the swan and the beaver, that's really extraordinary. And I love the Colossus, imagery.
Yes. Yeah. And just driving by them, they just looked so incongruous with the landscape.
They do, but they march.
Yeah.
They are our hearted giants.
Yeah, and here they are producing all this wonderful energy.
Exactly, without supposedly, except for the death of the birds, screwing things up too terribly.
Yeah. So there's kind of it's kind of a
paradox of modern life.
It's very different, paradoxical. Yeah. Okay, here is another one, another kind of prosy poem called Owl, and I was visiting the Audubon. It was a book convention in Portland, Oregon, and they had this raptor out on display, and it was this beautiful owl, and I fell absolutely in love with it. It's called Owl. The problem was the owl's eyes were so perfect, so black, so lustrous, so elliptical, that I wanted to be lost in them forever, to enter a bird's eye view of the world, to see in the dark, be inside out blackness. The problem was the owl's feathers were so gray, so gunmetal gray, so coat of squirrel gray, so blue gray, that I wanted neither day or night, to be in sheer limbo of it all, mute and silent. The problem was the owl's head swiveled from left to right like a lazy Susan, like it had no vertebrae, like watching a skater whip around in circles, that I wanted all my thoughts to dissolve. The problem was the owl's modeling was so white, so virginal, like the soft down of a swan, like a lamb lived in its feathers, that I wanted to drift into deep sleep. The problem was the spotted owl was so beautiful I no longer wanted to be human, that I wanted to dwell in the wellspring of those eyes, that I wanted to take flight in the cool night air with fringed wings, to be silent and soft-feathered, to fall from a great height at will, sensing the barely visible.
Well, you certainly do it in those poems. You get there. So about 5 minutes. So I don't know where your poems will fit.
Okay, 5 more minutes, okay.
Ish.
All right, I'm gonna get these poems out. I also write a lot of haiku. My next book of poems is gonna be a book of haiku. And these happen to be all about bees. And it's kind of a reference to the fact that the bees are disappearing.
Right.
They stopped growing, tiny zucchinis, 0 bees. With a delicate brush, I gather pollen from the flower, once bees' work. Zooming past me, only the small bees' shadow.
Very good match of subject and form.
Yes, yes. Small animal, small,
Yes.
small poem.
Yes, but pointed.
Yes. And I think I'll read 2 more. This one's called Where Do You Go? This one's almost like a nursery rhyme. Crow, crow, where did you go? Your black cloak does not hang in my closet. Dove, dove, where did you fly? Your olive branch does not fit in my mouth. Duck, duck, where did you swim when the pond in my heart froze over? Squirrel, squirrel, where did you hide now that my branches are bare? Fox, fox, who did you hunt when my footprints disappear in the snow? Crow, crow, where did you go?
Some strange and wondrous nursery rhyme indeed.
Yeah. And I was given the task of going to sitting out and sitting in a particular place. This was in Maine, a graduate school, and to write about what I was observing. But I was observing there was no wildlife around me.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, very, very clever.
Yeah. And I think I'll probably end with this poem. This is called Bird of Desire. It is dusk. The fog bank rises over the hills, and a wind howls through the oak-filled valley. I scan the ridge with a careful eye for coyote, fire, or buzzard passing. I'm neither raptor nor songbird, my tail feathers aflame with yellow and red. I will call out 3 times. If you do not hear me, I will circle this darkened sky and bring a fiery light to your distant eyes. I will scream through cloud and fog banks so my cry pierces through to your very heart. My talons will claw through earth and scratch the oldest granite stone to see water trickle out. I am the wild within you. Release me. Release me.
That is clarion. And that's, I mean, there's, the green fuse or whatever, Dylan Thomas said, it's just rising in you. And I just sense that you have to write these poems.
Yeah.
You don't have any choice.
Right. And that one just came through me, Yeah.
Well, we actually have a tiny bit of time, so let's put another one in.
Okay.
A last one, perhaps.
This is called Antelope Woman, and this is a new poem, too. Has a very Native American feel to it. Mm-hmm. I smell sage and dust, scan the tan desert light. My shins, the branches of willow. My hooves, the nubby stubs of chalk, as I thud over rough terrain. My deep brown eyes mirror dusk. If you enter them, you'll be lost in the forest of tomorrow. Come run with me, run with my band, my portable village of antelope people. Run away from the storm brewing and the thundering black skies. Run away from the 2-footed creatures who plant wheat and carry weapons.
Yes, yes. So that's beautiful, and we won't try to cram another one in. In our tiny bit left graduate school, did it give you what you needed from it? Because it
was this intense incubator of creative thought.
That's what I wanted to know. Because it can squeeze the spirit out too.
It had a little bit of both.
Uh-huh.
It definitely did. It made me produce work I never would have produced otherwise, and it also made me doubt myself as a writer at the same time.
Well, no doubts I have at all, Terri. These are glorious poems.
Oh, thank you
so much. And we are done for now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.